Hey, time for some more vertebrae. Already dropping my vertebrae here. I don't want to do that. I don't want to break them. So let's start out with a cervical vertebra. This is a cervical vertebra. It's got all the usual stuff plus something extra that identifies it as being cervical. So I'm holding this guy by his spinous process. Here's the body. Here's the body. Spinous process here. I do have a pair of transverse processes coming out. I see the usual stuff. I mean, I got my usual pedicle. I'm going to turn this guy around. My usual pedicle right in there. My usual lamina. Again, look how thin the lamina is. Lamina. Transverse process. And I'm holding it gently by the spinous process. I do see my superior. I should turn it so you can see it too. Is that better? My superior articular processes with their superior articular facets. And I'm going to see those inferior facets down here. Where are they? There it is. Right there again. So what really makes the cervical vertebra unique is the multiple foramina. We do have a vertebral foramen right here through which the spinal cord passes. But on this cervical vertebra, I also get a pair of transverse foramina. Transverse foramina, vertebral arteries go through them. Vertebral arteries going up towards your brain travel through transverse foramina. So this is a basic cervical vertebra. Recall that you've got 7 cervical vertebrae, 7. And remember, of course, you've got 12 thoracic vertebrae, 5 lumbar vertebrae, plus a sacrum, plus a coccyx. And remember breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the first 3 there. Of the 7 cervical vertebrae, 5 of them look like this good old regular guy. The other 2 look weird. This is the first cervical vertebra. This is C1. He is known as the Atlas. I know you guys are all into and up on your classic mythology, your Greek mythology. And you remember, Atlas was one of the Titans. And his job was to hold up the skies, to hold up the heavens. In classical sculpture, he is often shown holding up the earth, which is kind of weird. But the Atlas, where is the Atlas? There it is, I found it. The Atlas has a pair of superior articular facets. And these superior articular facets articulate with the occipital condyles of your skull. I wish I had grabbed a skull, but I took the skull back to the lab. So that articulation allows you to say, yes, yes, anatomy class is fantastic. Okay, that nodding motion, that flexion and extension that you get there. All right. So this is the Atlas, C1. We call it the Atlas because of its role in holding up the skull. And I see the superior articular facets that articulate with the occipital condyles. Now he's weird as well because he does not have much of a body, does he? He doesn't have much of a body. It's like he's missing the body here. We'll see why in a second. Right here I do have a bump in the back. I don't really have a spinous process. I have a bump, a posterior tubercle. I got normal transverse processes, of course, with the classic cervical structure, the transverse foramina. All right. I mean, that's pretty much it, you know? I got some inferior articular facets too. Now, why do I have this weird situation? It is all about this guy. This is C2. He is the axis. And C2 has an upward structure called the dens. Right here, this is the dens. And what happens is the dens is going to articulate with the Atlas. So I got them together. They want to spin. They want to spin because that is what they do. They articulate together and they rotate. You can rotate about an axis. The Atlas rotates on the axis. This is called the atlanto-axial joint. It allows for a pivoting motion like a no. I'm not ready for this test kind of motion, okay? So the reason we don't have much of a body in this atlas is kind of like the body is actually part of the axis. And that structure right there is called the dens. It's also called the odontoid process. The word dens, of course, means tooth, like dentist, dental, that sort of thing. So somebody thought it looked like a tooth. I don't know. All right, other things on this axis. Well, I can see that I'm holding it by the spinous process. We have a spinous process. It is split here. It is bifurcated, and that is often the case. You can kind of see that a little bit on this guy. I got transverse processes. I'm trying to hold it by the transverse processes. It wants to spin on me. There we go. Holding it by the transverse processes. And as I rotate, you can see those transverse foramina. You can see my marker. Not a marker, it's a pen. I keep doing that. My transverse process right there. And right there. I still got my body. I got my lamina. I got my pedicle as well. I got superior articular facets and I got inferior articular facets. All right, so that is an axis. This was an atlas, and this was a classic traditional cervical vertebra. On that note, see you later.